delivering phase 1B, and you can see the metrics on phase 1B. We've got a project IRR of 40.5%, and we have a net present value with an 8% discount of 2.2 billion Australian dollars. This is a very significant project with very, very low upfront capex and very, very low peak capital. Second thing I look for is margin. This project has phenomenally high margins driven by the byproduct credits and location. So what people miss is that margin drives financial models, cost curve does not drive financial models. So to give you a sense, the SOP that we produce, we have a selling price there of $725 a tonne, and that's because people can collect it at our gate in California and use it directly on the nut farms and various other things that are located proximate to our project. If I produce SOP in the middle of Australia, my selling price is likely to be $500 a tonne. Okay, so margin is driven by what does it cost me to get it to my customer and what does my customer pay me for that. Margin is also driven by byproduct credits. And for us, in our first phase, we have hydrochloric acid as a byproduct. In our second and third and fourth phases, when we start producing significant amounts of boric acid, we have SOP as our byproduct. The most expensive SOP producer globally is Compass Minerals, which is the only producer in the United States. So that's our competitor in terms of preserving the margins that we're talking about there. Of years, and I know how difficult it is to take a technology out of the lab into the real world. In the case of our project, the ore body has been mined for a period of 6 years, producing 300 tonnes a month. The Mannheim process, which is the start of our process, effectively our acid plant, produces half of the world's production of potassium sulfate or SOP. So this is well proven. This ore body has been mined, and as such, the technical risk is well understood. The process is well understood. The final thing I think that you've got to be able to get your head around is an EBITDA target that makes the project substantial. So if I can't see 100 million a year of minimum of EBITDA, you don't have a sufficiently substantial project to push yourself into the indices in Australia. And if you can't get into the indices in Australia, you don't get the liquidity that you need to be able to effectively exit positions. So for us, we have a substantial EBITDA. The EBITDA target in full production is over 500 million Australian or 345 million US dollars. We have multiple revenue streams, so this is not a one-trick pony. This is boric acid plus SOP plus gypsum. Gypsum goes into the Californian agricultural market as a soil amendment for high sodic soils. So the calcium in the gypsum neutralises the sodium in those soils. And the final thing I think you've got to get comfortable with is that you're not going to change the global supply-demand dynamic too significantly to affect prices. In full production, based on sensible growth amounts, we will be about 7% of the world's production of borates. We will be number 3 in the global borate market after Turkey and after Rio Tinto, with Turkey continuing to increase production. Why borates? We've talked about it being a duopoly market. There's very few sources of new supply. But more importantly, the uses for borates. So in the first instance, borates is a micronutrient. It's the second most consumed micronutrient for agricultural purposes in North America after zinc. The focus for us is certainly on that fertiliser market and on the EV to EBITDA multiples associated with North American fertiliser peers. The developers trade at 10 times EBITDA multiples. That's what they trade at. So when you put some context around that number there, it shows you what we're targeting and why the focus is certainly on that fertiliser market. But in addition to that, borates are used for multiple different things attaching to new world thematics. Ceramics, fiberglass insulation, wind turbines, nuclear power plants, permanent magnets. So to build a permanent magnet, you need 16% boron in that permanent magnet. Okay, so the context here is this is not a story about one particular thematic. This is a story about multiple thematics, including food security, including green technology. So for us, quite simplistically, we have a low upfront capex and low peak capital. We have brilliant financial metrics driven by the very high margin that we have. We have a proven processing route on site. We have a substantial EBITDA target. We have multiple revenue streams. We're targeting less than 10% of the global market. We're moving into a growing borate market with very few sources of additional supply. And there's multiple uses for borates, including the food security fertiliser angle. And we're located in California, which happens to be the third largest agricultural market on the planet. Thank you.